Lunch Therapy. Here we are, episode 130. We are here to play. We are here to chill. We're going to put the old news cycle in the rack there, get away from the fires and pestilence and racism and all the horrible stuff that's going on out there. And we're going to take some breaths. We're going to have some fun. We can always get back to that stuff afterwards. So step into the circle with me. Leave your crap on the outside and take a break from the crap. Lunch Therapy. I'm gonna get myself a modem. 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 I am going to get myself a modem. I think I got one already. Otherwise, you wouldn't be seeing me right now. That butterfly's really hanging around today. That's good to have a good butterfly. I think that's a good sign. I am here. I'm here to play today. I brought my A game. This that we're seeing behind me is courtesy of Kyler Boone, Nomadic Ambiance. I invite you to go to his YouTube channel, Nomadic Ambiance, and they have got all kinds of relaxing waves and trees and rain and all kinds of cool stuff, and it's beautifully shot by old Kyler Boone here. He gave me permission to do this on the show, and I thank him. So here we go. We're going to take our first breath. In through the nose, out through the toes. Hold it. Let it out. Let the waves of oxygen flow through your body like the waves of the ocean. In through the nose, out through the toes. Hold it. Welcome to the gun show, my friends. You know, it's super hot here. And I got this hat on that's keeping my brain in place. We got a really great week coming up. It's only Tuesday, so we've got a lot more to do this week. One more breath. In through the nose, out through the toes. Hold it. Let it out. Yeah, I'm influenced by our guest Tony Horton a while back. I've been, trying to work out. It's happening. I've got an Airstream trailer on my shirt. I got this up there in Washington, the great state of Washington. You need to take these. Todd. Says you need to take these pythons. I can't read it here because it's hidden. But anyway, I got to move into this other room here. There we go. Little forest. Maybe I'll be able to see Todd's chat here. You need to take those pythons to the vet. They look sick. All right, you can send us your gun show. All right. Oh, this is what I want to tell you. Coming up this week, we have a guest tomorrow. His name is Keith. Well, okay, I put the wrong name up there. Jenny's trying to get involved again. Keith Ross Nelson. He's a comedian here in Los Angeles. Been a comedian for like 30 years. He's going to come on tomorrow, and we're going to have some fun with him. He's going to be live, so that means we can screw with him while he tries to tell a crazy story. And then we're going to have Jenny Sykes, one of our favorites. She's coming back just because she wants a shirt. Danielle promised her a shirt if she comes on the show. We do have these great Lunch Therapy shirts. A lot of us have them. They're at my website, joelmarshall.com. And then on Friday, we're going to have the great actor, Michael Monks. You've seen his face. You've seen him on a ton of stuff. He's also my acting teacher too, he's one of the best acting teachers in Los Angeles, perhaps the world, as you can tell from the acting styling of Joel Marshall. So we've got some. Let's see what old Camilo Lopez has to say. Now, when you say the great state of Washington, you have to wonder if you're talking about football. Oh, probably. Well, I don't. I think maybe she's referring to the Washington Huskies, who are not playing this year, unfortunately. Maybe she's talking about the Seahawks. I'm not sure. We're going to have to ask her for more details. She might be talking about the Washington football team that doesn't have a logo anymore, and now they're just called the Washington football team, which is quite interesting. I think that they should be called the Americans. Doesn't that seem like the solution to that problem? The Washington Americans. Pretty much says it all. All right. I'm going to take one more breath. We're going to go right back to the ocean here. We're going to take one more breath. We're going to get... Here we go. In through the nose, out through the toes. Hold it. Let it go. Now for the hummingbird portion of the show. I think the butterflies have to leave. Yes, so a lot of people have been pointing this out to me. Gunnell is trying to go back on his everybody gets a shirt idea. You're buying them, Gunnell, for sure. Jose says they should be called the Washington Politicians. Oh, I don't know. People might hit them pretty hard when they're out there on the field if they're called the Politicians. All right, so everybody's been pointing this out to me. There's a hummingbird hat. This is a woman wearing a hummingbird hat, and it actually works. So if there are any hummingbirds out there that you're like, hey, I need to get closer to the hummingbirds. These GoPro videos are not enough. I need to be present. I need to hear the humming, which I think is probably really good for you. The sound of hummingbirds probably like a cat sound. Here's another guy looking very serious, wearing his hummingbird hat. His name is Jim Thompson. Jim Thompson. It's a YouTube site there. Gunnell's going to have to up his Vimeo. No one knows exactly what it means. So the next thing I wanted to show you is this, because I don't know what this is. Is this really a sport? It's called, I don't know, fin swimming? Immersion? Fin swimming? Has anybody heard of this? You know, we're looking for a lot of sports alternatives these days, and I think fin swimming might be the next big thing. It might be the next soccer or football. These women, they put... Oh, hold on. I lost them. Okay. These women, they put these giant fins on, and they swim, and apparently they have like an oxygen tank they put out in front of them. Has anybody seen that? Washington Filibusters. That's another good name for them. Although, you kind of want the game to move along. You don't want to get stuck in a filibuster. This is actually, I think, another calming, relaxing way to escape the noise, possibly watch these women swim with their gigantic fins, possibly modern day mermaids. I imagine there are mermen also that do this sport. I haven't seen that yet. Someone let me know. They look like mermaid fins. That's right, they do. And look how fast they're moving. It seems almost like they're cheating, though. You know, it's like cheating because you got this oxygen tank, and then you're also cheating because you got this gigantic fin. But I guess it's not cheating if everybody's doing it. Is that a new slogan? It's not cheating if everyone's doing it. One other thing I wanted to show you is there's live footage from the Atlantis, which is or the Nautilus. The Nautilus. It's a ship that we showed last last week we showed these people down under the ocean looking at the sperm whale and just totally geeking out because the sperm whale was swimming near them and they were way down deep in the ocean. And here they are again, but this is a live cam. This is like going on right now. We're watching. There's 312 other people watching. You see it's on the Nautilus, EV Nautilus YouTube channel. I thought I'd point that out for y'all because, you know, it's a good place to go. Check some stuff out. One more thing I want to show you on the interwebs before we get to the meat of the show is this. This seems like a very Myth Club thing to do. You'll see it's very interesting. All fly, no kick. No arms since you don't have to breathe. Well, you have to breathe. But you have to breathe through the oxygen tank. It's weird. It's a weird sport. I didn't even know it was a sport. I'm not even sure it is. There you go. I surprised you with that, didn't I? Surprised you with that. I don't know why they did it. I don't know why they did that. One more thing. We're just going to look at a little bit of nature rain walk. Well, we gather ourselves for what I've got for you today, which is going to blow your mind. Oh, no. Todd Lee says, under promise, over deliver. So coming up, we've got some really boring ass shit that's going to happen. And breathing is not an option. As we know here, breathing is not an option. I don't think I've breathed since our breathing thing. So I'm going to take in another deep breath during this rain walk. And let it go. Okay, now we're on to some really boring ass shit that I find interesting, and I think you will too, actually. So, I have been noticing, you know, I spend a lot of time looking around for interesting things for the show, and I found some really interesting stuff about puppets. Puppets are, when we were growing up, puppets were kind of big. They were huge. It was like a big deal, puppets. We had, you know, obviously Sesame Street. We had Mr. Rogers, who had all these puppets in this weird imaginary puppet land. We had Daniel Tiger, and we had the owl. And of course, you know, we had Esmeralda. In Seattle, we had Esmeralda, which is really just a Raggedy Ann doll. We had things like this, the dancing bear. This is the dancing bear from Captain Kangaroo. Going around the circle. But as I got older, I found out about this company in drama school. Does anybody know what they're called? They are called the Bread and Puppet Theater. The Bread and Puppet Theater. So this is something I think we need more of these days, because what they were is they were a theater that protested things that were going on, and they did so by making these giant puppets. And they have had great success. They started out with so Elky and Peter Schuman are the people that started the Bread and Puppet Theater in the 1960s. This is Peter today. These are the two of them. They're just delightful people. The world needs more delightful people like the Bread and Puppet Theater, like Elke and Peter Schuman. They're still around. They're up in Vermont now. But the cool thing about these people is they asked Peter, they said, why do you make these giant puppets? And the great thing about people that do extraordinary things is they're like, they almost don't even have an answer to the question because it was just logical. It was a logical thing. His answer was, well, he's from Germany. We were in New York, and we needed very large puppets because they're very large buildings, so we needed very large things to get people's attention. So, and then people were like, well, why is it called Bread and Puppet Theater? And instead of saying, well, we wanted to sound cool, he says, well, I come from a town where we made bread. And so we make bread in this oven before the performance, and then we feed people the bread. We feed people the bread. And I'm acting this out for you so that I don't show the video, because I don't, So we make the bread, and they're like, why do you give people bread? Why do we give people bread? And they say, well, so they can eat it while they're looking at the puppets. Now I'm sounding a little Russian. Which totally makes sense. They give them the bread. They watch the giant puppets. Maybe they learn something, because there's a lot of political content in the bread and puppet theater. So then I'm, looking around, and I see they're touring what they call the museum now, the puppet museum at the Bread and Puppet Theater. And it's got all these puppets in there, because they've been doing this since 1960. And there's just a ton of puppets. And Elka's walking around showing this guy all these puppets. And they're like, how many puppets do you have? And she says, I don't know, maybe hundreds, maybe thousands. And then she leans in and she says, Peter, he has a bit of the horror vacui. I've never heard the term horror vacui before, but it suddenly a light went on in my head, and I'm like, horror vacui? I think my wife might have some horror vacui. Here's Kamala. She wants to adopt Elka and Peter, of course, because I think, she might be part of that group. Horror vacui is just an innocuous thing. It's basically when you want to fill every possible space with cool stuff. And that's what Peter does. He likes to fill every space with cool stuff, and he's got a bit of the horror vacui. And I looked it up. It's an actual term. I think we kind of I grew up with a lot of horror vacui. I don't know why they call it horror. That's what makes it sound like a bad thing. Cracked magazine, Mad magazine, Crumb. They were all horror vacui, just filling the spaces, right? Oh, yeah, I have that for sure, Kamala says. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's what I thought. I didn't think she'd be offended by this horror vacui, because it's kind of cool. There's lots of cool horror vacui stuff out there. Of course, Where's Waldo? Another sort of horror vacui. Beauty vacui. Yeah, I don't know. I think the horror part is, gives it a bad name. So moving on, because there's a lot more that this leads to, is I started looking into the giant puppets, because I still did not figure out where these giant puppets were that I was looking at. And this is one of the things that I ran across. Now, this is a giant puppet. Little girl giant. And I thought, hey, maybe this is the Bread and Puppet. Oh, Guinel meant Patreon, not Vimeo. Yes, you can sponsor us so we can buy shirts for guests. There's a link underneath the video. Patreon. So here's the giant. This is much bigger than the Bread and Puppet. This has gone to a new level of gigantic. All right, Todd. Now you've thrown down the gauntlet. Todd Lee will be telling a crazy story sometime soon. Hopefully, I will be the hero if I'm in it. The hero of the story. So there's a dog. So, okay, let me tell you something about this. This is called, the theater company is called the Royal Deluxe. And I don't speak French, so there's a lot I don't understand, because I watched a lot of French things to find out about this. But this is done in Liverpool. And what they did is they had this giant doll of this girl, and there's a story. Because the Titanic, as you all know, sank. And there's a letter in a museum there that this little girl wrote this letter to her father, who was getting on the Titanic, and gave it to somebody and said, hey, you got to give this to my father on the Titanic before he goes, sails away. And it never got to him. And so they have this letter. So in this pageant that the Royal Deluxe has concocted, this giant girl, why she has to be giant? Well, because it's the buildings are big and you need the big puppets. So she's on a crane basically walking through, and she has a dog, Xylo, and then there is her uncle, who is another gigantic puppet. Look at this. This is what they do in France, which is cool, because in France, this makes sense. And I think in the rest of the world, this would make sense too, as they travel around the world and people are like, hey, look at the big puppets. So this is the guy. He actually went to find his brother, essentially. This is the uncle who goes out to find his brother in the ocean. And they have all these people and these giant cranes, and it's possibly the coolest thing ever. And so I'm like, what is this? How do these people do this? Who are they? So I'm looking into it, and it turns out Royal Deluxe has all kinds of big, huge marionette puppets. This is a grandmother lady. There's the dog again. This is actually a parade when they started to retire them, and I'm thinking, I missed this entire thing. I missed this huge thing about the puppets. Where have I been? Horror vacui, better known as hoarding. I think there's a distinction. There is a distinction. We'll have to figure out what the distinction is, because I think you fill the spaces with beautiful things, and if you're a hoarder, you're just hoarding things to keep them rather than filling your space with beauty. That's what I think. That's why it should be called beauty vacui, I believe. Camel is correct on that. So here are these giant puppets. They have one more giant puppet. Well, they have lots of them. This is very much like the Lilliputian story we were talking about last week, and Gulliver's Kingdom. This is a Gulliver type. They admit this. They in fact call those little puppet guys. They call them Lilliputians, and they operate these incredibly huge puppets. So I'm thinking, like, how did this come about? Where are these people? And apparently they are in France, in a town called Nantes. 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 The Isle of Nantes. And I started looking around. I'm like, why is that? Why? How does this happen? How do they get to do this? What planet are they living on where this is possible, I guess? So the guy, Jean-Luc Carroll, this is him. This is the guy who designs these huge puppets. And he's like, super interesting guy. And this is a quote from him. Letting out one's laughter means evacuating stress, anxiety. Nantes. I don't know if Vernus speaks French, so she should probably be explaining this to me, because maybe she likes Nantes as well. She's probably been there. Good to see you, Vernus. Letting out one's laughter means evacuating stress and anxiety. So that's one of the things that we're doing on this show, is releasing stress and anxiety. And I think, sometimes people think comedy or entertainment is frivolous, and it's not. It serves a serious purpose in this world. And so this guy apparently saw that, because in Nantes, here's a map of Nantes, and there's a guy there who was the mayor of Nantes, and he is this guy. And I don't know anything about his politics. I know nothing about it, except that he was the mayor there, and he thought, hello, Void Thought. Good to see you. He thought, hey, we're having a real trouble with this one area of town where there's a depressed economy. And he's like, what can I do to boost the economy? And, lots of people think of ideas that are not creative to boost the economy. There's a million of things like, do I give money out? Too big to fail? I'll just say too big to fail, and you'll know what I'm talking about. But Jean-Marc, I can't pronounce anything in French. I'm so poor with my French. But anyway, this fellow decided, hey, what I'll do is I'll get those giant puppet people to come here and have their home base here, we'll get some giant puppets, and that'll bring in more people, and we'll boost the economy, and that's what we're going to do with the Isle of Nantes. So he went out and got that theater company and was like, you can come here, and I will help you, and I will give you money, and you will make your giant puppets, and you will blow up cars in the street like earlier we saw. You will do weird things, fun theatrical things that people will enjoy. And that's what he did. So he got Royal Deluxe. So they're there. And, this guy, Jean-Luc Carroll, is now there. But then the weird thing is I see this, which is one of their puppets, and it's called the Sultan's elephant. I'll get a little closer look here. This is the Sultan's elephant. It's one of their puppets. You see it next to the little girl puppet. And you're like, wow, that is the coolest puppet I have ever seen, perhaps. This gigantic elephant. And I'm looking around, and then I find this. And I'm like, well, is that the puppet of the Royal Deluxe? I don't know. So I'm really confused. I'm really actually quite confused. And I find out that this is also happening in Nantes. I mean, what is this Nantes place? I got to get over to this Nantes place because this is on the Isle of Nantes, which is this kind of area in the city of Nantes. And they have this whole other thing. This elephant is actually based on the elephant puppet. And it is this thing which it's called the Machines of the Isle, I believe. La Machine. I'm not going to try and pronounce French because it would be embarrassing for me to do so. I'm just going to show you some of their cool stuff. They have a giant spider. And not only is it a giant spider, but people who come to the Machines of the Isle, they can actually get up on there and ride. Anybody out there seen this? Where am I from? Void Thought. Void Thought, I am from I'm from Seattle, Edmonds, Washington, and now I'm here in Los Angeles showing you giant spiders. That's a pretty cool one. There's that. So there's that. Then they have like a mechanical sloth that moves around. This is a drawing of it from their website, Mechanical Sloth. They also, this is, their logo. They have this gallery of machines where they have this carousel with these crazy, that looks like something we saw during Oceans Week. And they're going to build this giant tree. They're going to build this giant tree as well, and it's going to have these herons that fly people around. These people are living life the cool way. These are the designers of this, Francois and Pierre. Seem like pretty cool guys. This is what they're going to do next. They're going to make these herons, these giant herons that people can get on and they somehow fly. I don't know. I'm going there, though. I know that I'm going there, and I don't know if the Cult of the Hummingbird is going to go there with me. But when all this stuff is over, Nantes. I'm headed to Nantes. And then there's this awesome thing that they're going to do. They're going to build this gigantic tree. They're in the middle of building this tree. It's a heron tree. And I don't know. Seems kind of reminiscent of something we were talking about earlier, which is horror vacui. Yeah, I think it's beauty vacui, for sure. This is definite beauty vacui. Oh, vacui. So vacuous. And then there's this, which is a giant dragon. And I don't even know where this fits in. I have no idea. I saw even video of it breathing fire, I believe. Right now it's breathing smoke out of its nostrils or steam or something like that. But I just think we got to get more of these in the United States as well. We got to get some more horror vacui going on. Nantes on the bucket list. Vernus, one of our hummingbirds, will go with us for sure. So anyway, I highly recommend that. I know nothing about it other than what I told you. But I think giant puppets are cool. And today's episode has been what is with all the giant puppets. And I hope that I've answered that question for you. We are now going to, we're not going to get into the Trash Panda Comedy Room, probably tomorrow. Tomorrow we have, a fantastic, we got Keith on here. We're going to bring him on live. We can ask him questions. We can give him suggestions for comedy, and he'll do comedy because he's a hilarious, hilarious person. He's been doing comedy for decades. So now it's time for the dance break. For those of you that might not know what the dance break is, which it happens, we have, at the end of the show, we dance. We listen to music. I try and find somebody who's kind of obscure, or maybe obscure, or maybe they're like singing a song that's well known, but they're busking. That's what they are. They're buskers. And I try and find people that are just super good, and I enjoy their music. Here's Kendall Elise. I believe she's from New Zealand, but I'm not sure. Enjoy dance break time. We'll see you tomorrow for more comedy. This is kind of quiet, so I'll try not to talk too much. Go by, this is maybe not like a dance kind of thing. More of a mood thing. Maybe I shouldn't be talking. Never alone, I'm alone all the time. Are you one? Do you lie? We live in a wheel where everyone steals, and when we rise, it's like strawberry fields. If I treated you bad, you bruising my face. Couldn't love you more, you got a beautiful taste. Don't let the days go by. Could have been easier on you. I couldn't change, though I wanted to. That's right, you know. Should have been easier by 3. Our old friend feared you and me. All right. Tomorrow we're gonna have a raucous adventure with Keith Ross Nelson. And we're going to have Jimmy Sykes on Thursday and Michael Monks on Friday. See you all then. Have a great day.